Have you ever wondered why the demons begged Jesus to enter a herd of pigs? It seems strange, but there is a hidden reason behind this request. And the most shocking part, Jesus allowed it. What does this really mean? Why would the Son of God allow these unclean spirits to enter impure animals? And what does this decision reveal about spiritual power and Jesus' mission? In this video, you're going to discover something surprising that few people notice when reading this passage. We will uncover the hidden secrets of this story, what it reveals about the demons, about the value of salvation, and what Jesus was trying to show the world. Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear could completely change your perspective on the spiritual forces and how they operate in our lives today. Jesus, in his ministry, often demonstrated an authority that surpassed human understanding, and one of the most impactful scenes of this is found in Matthew 8:28-34. As he crossed into the region of the Gerasenes, he encounters two men possessed by demons, fallen spiritual beings who immediately recognize who is before them, the Son of God. Now imagine this. Two tormented souls, unable to live in peace, relegated to the tombs, places of death and darkness. The fear and oppression that these men carried did not intimidate Jesus. On the contrary, the demons, beings that cause so much suffering, trembled in the presence of Christ. This passage not only describes an extraordinary moment, but echoes the superiority of God's power over darkness. The simple fact that the demons recognized who Jesus was without him needing to identify himself shows the extent of divine authority. They know they are before the judge, and their final destiny is inevitable. Here, Jesus doesn't make grand speeches. He lets his presence and authority speak for themselves, showing that the confrontation is not a struggle of forces, but an act of total submission of darkness before the light. In this encounter, it becomes evident that the fight against evil is not about equal power, but rather a hierarchy where Christ is the head. And this teaches us a precious lesson. True power does not lie in the hands of those who cause fear and chaos, but in the hands of the one who brings peace and restoration. This episode challenges each of us to reflect on how we deal with the invisible forces that torment us, whether they are external or internal. How often do we forget God's presence beside us, limiting ourselves to fight alone, when the very essence of Christ invites us to trust him as our deliverer? After calming a mighty storm on the Sea of Galilee, Jesus lands in a Gentile region, a place where he unexpectedly faces something even more turbulent. Two men possessed, coming out of the tombs, resting places of the dead, but where these men, taken over by evil spirits, now dwell. This scene transports us to a feared and unknown territory, which, from the Jewish perspective, made that area a place of impurity, far removed from the religious practices and traditions of Israel. This encounter between Jesus and the possessed emphasizes Christ's universal mission. The Son of God, who came first to the Jews, also transcends the boundaries of his people to reach the Gentiles. Jesus' presence in that territory conveys a profound message. Salvation, liberation, and the kingdom of God are accessible beyond religious and cultural barriers, being offered to all humanity. It's as if, by stepping there, Jesus was taking the first step toward the expansion of the gospel, making it clear that no place is beyond his reach and no soul is too insignificant for his attention. The two possessed men not only live in the shadows of death, but represent the desolation and separation of humanity from God. They are out of control, and the local society has no power to restrain or free them. This extreme state of oppression reveals what the absence of God and the presence of evil can cause. Yet even in this dark scenario, Jesus brings with him a promise of restoration and freedom that no force of darkness can hinder. When the demons confront Jesus, a peculiar request arises. They ask for permission to enter a herd of pigs instead of being cast into eternal torment. This request highlights the terror that these unclean spirits feel before God's judgment and the certainty of their final destiny. They know they are dealing with the Son of God, the only one with the power and authority to decide their fate. It's interesting to note that instead of resisting, they ask. This reveals an inevitable submission, where even the beings of darkness recognize that they can do nothing before Jesus except obey his decision. In Jewish culture, pigs were considered unclean animals, making this permission even more significant. Jesus grants the request, and what happens next is astonishing. Upon possessing the pigs, the entire herd rushes into the sea and drowns. What seemed like a momentary victory for those demons turns into a scene of complete destruction. This sequence of events shows us that Christ's purpose goes beyond exorcism. He not only frees the souls of the possessed men, but also exposes the true nature of evil, which is self-destructive and chaotic. There is a profound message here. Many times we seek solutions that only transfer our problems without genuinely freeing us from them. Just as the demons temporarily fled into the pigs, we might try to escape our spiritual struggles, but without the genuine deliverance that comes from Jesus, we end up being dragged back into the same chaos. This episode teaches us that unless we confront the roots of darkness in our lives, we will continue to be held captive by the same destructive forces. When the pigs, possessed by the demons, plunge into the sea and drown, the local community is astonished. The loss of 2,000 pigs represents a significant financial blow to that region, which likely relied on that livestock as a source of livelihood. This reaction demonstrates how the conflict between economic and spiritual values can create tension. Instead of celebrating the liberation of the possessed men, the locals see Jesus as a threat to their way of life, to their investment. That spiritual freedom, which in God's eyes has incalculable value, is viewed by the people of that community as a cost they do not wish to bear. This passage sheds light on an uncomfortable truth. Often, spiritual value is overshadowed by economic value. Those people prefer that Jesus leave rather than consider the blessing he brought to the freed men. How many times even today do financial interests prevent spiritual decisions from being made? Jesus, in his mission, challenges us to reassess our priorities. This episode invites reflection. What have we placed above our relationship with God? The reaction of the local people reminds us that to truly follow Christ, sometimes we need to let go of certain gains, comforts, or securities that the world offers. It doesn't mean neglecting responsibilities, but recognizing that God's presence in our lives is the greatest treasure, even if it costs us something we have valued. This conflict between economic and spiritual value reminds us of Jesus' words in Matthew 16:26. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? This event in the Gentile territory carries one of the grandest messages of all of Jesus' ministry. Salvation is universal, intended for all, and not limited to a specific group. By stepping into foreign land, Jesus challenges the boundaries that the Jewish people maintained regarding the Gentiles. By freeing those men, he demonstrates that his mission is for every human being, regardless of culture, tradition, or past. In other words, Christ did not come just for a specific people, but to break barriers, to free all creation from the clutches of evil. Jesus' presence there is not accidental, but intentional. He crosses the sea and confronts the demons, bringing light to a place that lived in spiritual darkness, where values of life and purity had been distorted. This attitude of Jesus is a powerful lesson for all who follow him. The mission of the gospel knows no limits. Just as he crossed the Sea of Galilee to bring liberation, we, as Christians, are also called to go beyond our comfort zones, to reach those who have yet to experience the grace and power of God. This passage makes us reflect on how we have lived out God's call. Have we limited ourselves, restricting the message of salvation to certain places, cultures, or circles? Jesus reminds us that true faith in God leads us to cross boundaries, break barriers, and announce the message of the kingdom, no matter how challenging it may seem. And as we do this, we walk in the footsteps of Christ, fulfilling what he himself taught us, that every human being can be redeemed and restored by the power of the gospel. If the Son therefore shall make you free, ye shall be free indeed. John 8:36.